Welcome to the Putback presented by 888 Casino. Sign up for 888 Casino today and get $20 in free play. No deposits necessary. New Jersey only. I'm Ian Begley here with Chris Williamson. Chris, what do we have for the baseline this week?
Well, Ian, the finals started on Tuesday, and Chris Paul is obviously a big part of that for the Phoenix Suns. And he was a big-time target on the Knicks' radar last year. What's his future for this offseason?
Right, so he has a player option, and the thinking, I think, among many teams is that he's going to decline that option. I think it's around $40 million for next year. And look, there's no reason to think that Chris Paul would not re-sign with the Suns on a multi-year deal. Phoenix has every reason to bring him back, obviously. He led them to the finals, helped them get to the finals. In the off chance that things don't go well between Paul and Phoenix in those negotiations, some agents with point guards in this free agency class are worried about Paul maybe coming to the Knicks, and that worry is based on the idea that their client would not have the Knicks as a potential option. And just a quick aside, Chris, Bleacher Report, I always appreciate them putting our stuff out there. They had one tweet that had me looking a little bit crazy because I think the tweet was something like, agents fear Chris Paul signing with the Knicks. So what was left out of there was that scenario only happens if he does not re-sign with the Suns. And I think everybody would expect him to re-sign with the Suns for reasons I said before.
This week's guest is Jonathan Macri. He is the dean of Knicks Film School.
I think we all agree that Damian Lillard's not going anywhere unless he asks out. You know, if you're Neil O'Shea and, you know, it's your job on the line, can you make that trade without getting back RJ Barrett? Don't you need a guaranteed blue chip prospect back in the deal that you're pretty confident is, at least if he's not going to make an all-star team for sure, he's going to be in all-star conversations as the years move forward? That's why I think, again, realistically, you know, push comes to shove, RJ would be in that deal.
Yeah, I can't see a deal happening there without RJ Barrett for the reasons that you mentioned, John. And then the question moving forward is, who are you bringing in alongside Lillard? Because, you know, the roster, I don't want to say gutted, but you're losing significant pieces in that trade no matter who is in the deal. I can't see a player wanting to come to New York if they're here and they're the only guy here and they're asked to be, you know, the savior.
Looking around at the other players available this summer, is there anybody really that you think is exciting to this front office? That's the thing I keep coming back to. It's like nobody's a perfect fit, either because of age or position, or where do you see the Knicks on that?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there is a perfect fit out there. It's not like there's a layup in this class where you say, obviously, you're going to go after Kevin Durant because he's one of the best players on the planet. You know, maybe Kawhi Leonard, but I mean, Kawhi, I think, is going to opt out because he's going to be able to make so much more money on his next contract, but I don't see him leaving the Clippers, so there's no obvious target. So it's going to be very interesting to see which way they go. Do they go for a younger player along the timeline that these younger guys are on? And that's why I mentioned a couple weeks ago, Kendrick Nunn, somebody who was on their radar internally, restricted free agent. So just a number of different ways they can take this thing. I also wonder if, because of the great results this past year, the year that you exceeded everyone's expectations, does that change the expectation for 2021, 2022? And if it does, how does that change how you might act, how you might aggressively pursue some players versus if you were just content to kind of build it slowly? I think the Knicks are open to both scenarios. At least that's what they've communicated to some people recently. So that's where I think they are now, but it'll be interesting to see how things proceed here as we get closer to the draft and free agency.
How do you think Knicks Twitter would react if they maybe took a step back next year? Because I see both sides of it. I feel like some people would applaud it. Some people would absolutely hate it. Where do you come down? Where do you think people would come down?
Knicks Twitter would be irate and livid, because you saw how a lot of Knicks fans that I saw on my timeline react to the playoff series, where they completely forgot about this great regular season where the Knicks shocked everybody and exceeded expectations so much. So if they took a step back and they fell down further in the Eastern Conference, I think a lot of Knicks fans would be even more impatient than they were in this series, against the Hawks.
I wonder, though, now injecting, last year's success into the mix, if there are certain moves that, let's say, were presented to the Knicks that a normal quote unquote rebuilding team might want to engage in, now they would look at and say, oh, we can't do that. We've kind of touched the promised land. We want to go further.
Last year, after the Knicks hired Tom Thibodeau, agents, other teams just connecting the dots said that there's no way that this team is not going to try to get win now players in the offseason. But the opposite happened. I mean, they didn't cross a certain threshold for Gordon Hayward. Same thing went for Malik Beasley. So it's not like they went out and spent the cap space that they had on win now players. And I think that there were people in the organization that thought that that's what was going to happen and we're looking for that to happen. It didn't happen though. Like Leon Rose and whoever made those decisions along with Leon decided to slow play it. And now here they are a year later, and the expectations maybe are a little bit different. Certainly the timeline feels a little bit different, but I don't know if at the end of the day they will be swayed by that, because they didn't seem to be swayed by it last offseason when those scenarios were in play and when they could have made a bigger offer for Gordon Hayward to sign him. Langston Galloway broke into the NBA with the Knicks. He was undrafted, 4-year player in college at a mid-major school, just a remarkable story in the NBA. And now he's making his first appearance in the NBA Finals with the Phoenix Suns. I caught up with Galloway before the series got underway to talk about several topics. There's a Q&A with Galloway on SNY.TV. Here's Galloway talking about his growth since his early days with the Knicks.
That New York days, it taught me a lot, knowing I had the opportunity to play alongside some great players, but then also too, just get my feet wet, playing the point and knowing that, hey, I can play the point in this league. And, I shoot the ball so well that they move me over to the 2, and it's you just play so well in this league, they can adjust you in different positions.
Galloway made the all-rookie team after coming up with the Knicks in 2014-2015. He looks back fondly on his days at the Garden.
A lot of great things. I won't say it was many bad. I mean, other than losing, it was tough. But, getting called up, that was a great moment for me, knowing that, I've arrived at my dream and, I made it this far. And then just getting the opportunity to play alongside Melo, that was another crazy moment for me, because that was one of my, players I looked up when I was a kid, and I always played the video game playing with him. So, just there was a lot of moments where I hit a lot of big shots in my career with the Knicks, and love my time in New York. And I always tell people, that was the best stop of my career because of, the fans. The fans really made that stop an amazing journey, an amazing ride for me.
As for the current Knicks, Galloway remains optimistic about their future.
It's coming. I mean, they continue to build the right pieces around the right guys. It's coming. Hey, you never know. Hey, maybe you might see me back in the New York Knicks jersey one day, and hey, we'll be going to the finals. So you never know.
I think if you look at the improvements, his shooting, his effective field goal percentage, given the amount of shots he takes, and you compare it with other guys over the last 20 years in the league, it's right up there with the very best. At the same time, I think if we're being realistic about what RJ is, everybody, here's the buzzword, it's shot creation, right? How many guys do you have on your roster that can create offense from nothing? RJ, 98% of his three-pointers this season were assisted. That does not track with some of the guys I know a lot of Knicks fans like to compare him to, your Jason Tatums of the world, some of the other high-level young wings in the league. He could get there. We've seen guys make progress before. Jaylen Brown started off first couple of years. He was in the high 90s in terms of assisted threes. He was at 80% last season. There's more progress to be made. I just wonder how much shot creation can we realistically predict for RJ Barrett?
So based on that, John, how do you think he can take that shot creation to the next level so that, he's somebody who's more potent?
I think it's what he showed the other night, the Greece game. Off the dribbles, step back, three-pointer, over the defense. If he adds that to his game, and it could be somewhat consistent, and what I love about what he did this year, going back to the positives, his shooting form became so repeatable, and I think it became a little faster. If he could just keep all that together, but just do it off the dribble and do it behind the arc, And I think he's a natural playmaker. We saw him have so much success on the pick and roll with Mitchell Robinson. You want to talk about something else that hurt RJ this year? He only had Mitch in the lineup with him for 20 some odd games. Bring him Mitch back, get even more spacing moving forward, keep working on that behind the arc, off the dribble three. I think that's the formula for how to get RJ to the place where, we're not talking about him in trade rumors anymore because he's the guy that can, maybe be your guy.
Our thanks to Langston Galloway and Jonathan Macri. That's it for this week of the Putback presented by 888 Casino. For Chris, I'm Ian. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Would you be willing to give up RJ Barrett in a trade for Damian Lillard? That's the subject of this week's SNY Fan Choice presented by 888 Casino. Sign up today and get $20 in free play. No deposit necessary. New Jersey only.